Welcome to OCR Canada's VIP event. We're so happy for you to be here today. We're thankful for your business, and we hope you have a great time. We hope you learn lots and network with the people that are here. We're going to move on to the panel. I'd like to introduce these extremely handsome gentlemen that are here. We're privileged to have these individuals join us. They're representing diverse perspectives with extensive experience in lots of B2B customer solutions. Each panelist brings unique insights and innovative approaches that have greatly influenced the industry over the years. First, we have Tony Mastrangeli. He holds over 25 years of experience in the distribution, logistics, transportation, manufacturing, and retail industries, implementing technologies such as Wi-Fi, mobility, support services. Tony started his career in 1997 with Purolator, managing their distribution center and supporting their mobile technology and service depot operations. He then moved to value-integrated organizations, performing leadership roles in operations, technical system engineering, sales teams while gaining hands-on experience. Tony moved to OCR Canada 12 years ago, and he's currently our Senior VP and General Manager. Also from OCR, we have Dan Sulan, our CTO, an expert on all things MDM and services. Dan has worked at OCR for over 20 years. He leads our professional services and support teams across Canada. He loves to geek out, so I may have to rein him in today. From Honeywell, our headline sponsor for this event, we have Anthony Wood, Canada's sales manager. Anthony's been in the logistics industry for over 30 years and with Honeywell Productivity Solutions for the past 20 years. Anthony has a wealth of experience in distribution channel and direct-to-end user solution sales. From Extreme Networks, we have Steve Borg, regional sales manager with over 25 years of experience in technical sales and sales management. Last but not least, we have one of our most long-standing OCR customers, Norm Weslinchuk, Director of Technology Solutions at Able Pest Control, a customer of OCR for the past 12 years, in IT for 25 years, and consulting for 10 years before Able. What are the most common challenges businesses face today, and how are you helping to address them?
So I'm told I have to go first for most of these things, so I wrote a lot of notes, but probably a lot of the perspective I'm going to be sharing with up here is maybe not necessarily all technology. And, you know, there's a lot of technology in the room right now. But our role at Able Pest Control is to support the operations team. The company is 100 years old. We'll be 100 next year. And we recently received a distinction, one of the 50 best managed companies in Canada. So that was a pretty big deal, and I thought it was a kind of a fluff thing, but there's a lot that goes into it. I didn't really understand that until we kind of went through the process. You learn a lot about your people, and you learn an awful lot about how you're managing them. So, but essentially, it's a field services organization. I look after all of IT, not just mobility. So from servers, VMware, everything we do from an IT focus. I've got probably 3 or 4 things. I would say one of the big ones that we're seeing today is pressure from inflation. You're seeing it in pricing changes, you're seeing it in your staff wages, and it's really, in many respects, it's leading to people, you know, leaving their careers and choosing different careers, you know. A lot of companies have a different perspective on when to offer raises and when to offer increases. Able adopted a policy, I guess, about 8 or 10 years ago, maybe not quite that long, but we started looking at different CPI, the Consumer Price Indexes, and a number of other different indicators to look at what inflation was like. And we would give everybody cost of living increases. We've been doing that for at least 5 years now. The last couple of years have been big ones. I think in the last 2 years, everybody across the board in the company has received about an 11 or 12% raise, which is massive. It's a massive investment in your people, but it's really reaped a lot of rewards because they talk to their friends, and their friends aren't getting those kinds of raises, you know. It's hard to do. We haven't figured out how we're going to pay for all of it yet, but you know, it's one of the main things. So that's one of the main pressures. I think You know, the other big pressure that you're seeing, and it's from COVID and it's gaining speed, this concept of remote work is right for everyone. It's not right for everyone, okay? Everyone would like to be able to work remotely, but it's just not feasible for that to be the case. We're in field service. How do you work remotely in field service? Even our IT department, we can't always work remotely. So we've adopted a hybrid work environment. You know, but when you approach the concept of remote work, you know, you got to understand that there's going to be people at home playing Fortnite during the day. You know, it's just the way it's going to happen. And if you don't think that that's the case, you're kind of fooling yourself. You know, so you have to use the concept of trust but verify. You know, like Ronald Reagan did with the Soviets way back when. You know, you got to think of this concept of, you know, you got to trust that your people got your best interests at heart, but at the same time, you know, if I call somebody and it takes them 20 or 30 minutes to get back to me on Teams, I want to know why that is, you know. So that's a big aspect. The labor shortage in technology is huge. I occasionally have to hire new Android developers, new web developers, and it's really hard right now. The people that you have coming through are not necessarily the best candidates. Sometimes you find a unicorn, and if you don't act quickly to grab that unicorn, they're gone. That's happened to us a couple of times, you know. So, and you know, developers especially are enjoying a lot of wide latitude of aspects of the workplace now. Their salaries have gone up significantly, especially Android developers, and everybody wants to work from home. So even, you know, if I have a requirement where I want them to work 1 day in the office and 4 days at home, I might lose that person because they're just not interested.
Yeah, so Norm touched on a bunch of things there. You know, it's crazy times we're in right now. Even today, you know, we've got interest rate hikes. We come out of COVID, into recession, wait, no recession, soft landing, everything's fine. We're all over the place right now. One thing that, you know, really resonated with me there, Norm, was, you know, you talk about employee shortages and stuff. So it's funny how all these things culminate there. Now we got governments looking at opening borders, bringing in, you know, hopefully to supplement labor forces, this kind of thing. So Honeywell, how do we approach that? Well, you know, and much like Norm, I've got a theme today too. I'm going to call it the enabled enterprise asset. And as we go through the program, oh, that's trademarked, by the way, Anthony Wood. Hashtag Woodyism, something along those lines. So for us, you know, we would look at a scenario like that, and we'd want to leverage things like OpIntel or some of our other software applications to help manage the people, help onboard people a lot quicker, manage that asset that those employees may need to get back into the industry and to get things going again within that organization as rapidly as possible. Other things like voice, you know, that's an overlooked application. We can modify, tweak those kinds of things to help, you know, put that coach in the ear and help enable people to be onboarded a lot quicker.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing a lot of that, and we're hearing that comment quite a bit from customers where, you know, the labor shortage is a real big issue, right? Not just people not wanting to work from home, but they've gone and found other things to do. You know, as we came out of the pandemic, which really drove, you know, digital transformation, we've seen, you know, the chip shortage, and we've seen supply chain issues, and as some of that is lifting and product is shipping, and now clients are having trouble getting those projects back on track because they don't have the staff. And so working with great partners like OCR, see, I told you I'd fit that in.
Love it.
But no, it's working with the partner community to leverage, you know, some of that kind of staffing and professional services. And then we augment that as well with the extreme professional services, right? So all that in combination with just sort of filling those gaps is really helping starting to get some of that traction and get some of those projects back on track.
I don't want to stick to the labor shortage. I think we look at it from a retention perspective, especially OCR. We've gone through some acquisitions, and we've done, I think, 4 acquisitions in the last, let's call it, couple of years. Yes, the labor shortage is out there, and I feel like we're at a point now where I'm putting a lot of pressure on the individuals within the organization. They're super talented individuals at OCR, We don't have a retention problem. You see a lot of them just long tenured with us, asking them to do more because of the labor shortage. And it puts a lot of stresses on the organization while you're trying to find that labor. So it becomes very important to align yourself with a partner from a recruitment perspective to make sure, I always call it the bench, that you always have possible candidates out there, someone that is strictly, now it's actually kind of changed. You've got people that are focused strictly, it's not HR anymore, right? It's people, it's retention, it's recruitment. So that's that piece of it. I'd say the second piece, from the impact of the question, yes, COVID's changed a lot of things, a lot of mentality, but everyone knows what other serious things that are out there, like cybersecurity attacks. It's never been so prominent in the last 18 months that it's in our face every day about it. We've encountered certain partners that have gone through that most recently. And the key is to keep the value that you have as an organization, to see their problem becomes your problem. And you've got to figure out a way to help them out of it as well, because we have customers at the other end of it. And if we don't do anything to help them, they've been cyber attacked and let's move on. That's not the answer anymore these days, right? You've got to invest your time as well with the existing team to help your partners along to get out of those kind of situations, and then fulfill the obligations and the commitments through the services that you have to your client base.
I think you hit cybersecurity on the head there. I think that's the biggest thing, the largest conversation that I've been having with most of my clients is basically, we've implemented new technology that's mobile or fixed to help alleviate some of the labor shortages, but it's now vulnerable. It's now a vector of attack. It's an egress point or ingress point into our organization, or an egress point. It could be something that's sending stuff out. And it's a different world for traditional IT. They know how to deal with things that are stuck on a desk and they're running Windows, right? This is a whole different ball game for them. And those types of discussions are what are basically taking up most of my time nowadays. And there are a lot of solutions that we offer and some of our partners offer that can alleviate or at least reduce the risk, and to Norm's point, trust and what was it?
Trust and verify.
Trust and verify.
Trust but verify.
Trust but verify. So we trust it, but we are also verifying and auditing it.
Sounds great to me, team. What are some technology solutions businesses can leverage to increase their competitiveness in the market?
I'm going to say something that's a bit controversial here. The cloud is not always the best place for your data, okay? I don't believe that the cloud is a be-all, end-all. However, you may not have a choice, right? Because where all the large vendors are going now with what they're doing it in the cloud. So if you want that neat new AI feature, you can't do it in your on-prem, at least not right now. So we have a cloud. We call it our private cloud, but we have all of our own equipment. We use Microsoft in the Office 365 space, but that's about it. Everything else we build ourselves. Our ERP system we built ourselves. All of our mobile apps have been built by us, and that's generally how we roll. Same with our web technology. So that's why our IT department has gone up, and my CIO and CFO often will look down at the line beside IT and he'll shake his head and go like this. But a lot of innovation comes in the IT space. A lot of innovation comes in operations, but it's the folks in the IT team, at least at Able, we spend a lot of time thinking of ways of making things better, making things run smarter, and we do a lot of interaction with the end users to get there. So the other big thing is technology has to be easier, okay? You have younger people coming up today, I don't want to say their attention span is different, but they're different people to manage. And the things that are important to them are different than, when I was going up through the ranks. So, you can yell at the wind, but the wind's going to keep blowing, right? So you got to figure out a way to engage them and keep them a part of on the train, on the bus, that wherever you're taking the bus, Training is obviously essential to your success. I mean, I can't stress that enough. in the last few years, we've used Teams quite a bit, especially to get through COVID, as I'm sure a lot of people have used Teams or Zoom. So they look at it as a collaboration tool, and you can put whatever label you want to put on it. It's really starting to become a sense of community, too, within your organization, because especially if you are doing a lot more remote work, you know. Although we're a field services organization, you know, it's all independent route managers going out and tackling pest control. So they're little islands that are traveling out and about. They communicate with their peers through Teams. You know, occasionally they get together. It's not as much as it used to be. But Able is Able's a $100 million business. And we compete with multi-billion-dollar companies like Orkin and Rentokil and a host of others. So how do you compete with big giant gorillas in the room? Well, you got to use technology. They're like the big tanker in the ocean, and it takes them a long time to turn their boat and get up to speed, but once they're up to speed, you don't want to be in front of them. They'll run you over. We're like a speedboat. We want to drive around them, you know? So we use technology surgically to be innovative and to use it to our advantage. We rarely sell on price. We always sell on quality, and the type of solution that we're offering is generally very data heavy. We want to offer a lot of data analytics, a lot of data, a lot of information that a lot of our competitors just have not, you know, they don't think it's as important, or perhaps their perception is that the customer does not see it as being important. But if it wasn't for John Able going to Western a number of years ago and becoming a computer science major, the company might be very different, you know. John is a comp sci major, so when he came to Able and he took it over from his father, you know, he had decisions to make, and he decided, you know, do we invest in an ERP system or do we build our own? So we built our own. Same thing with mobility. You know, we built our own. It's a double-edged sword, right? You have a lot of pros of having your own custom software. You can tweak it to do whatever you want, but there's negatives too. It can be costly, you know, and you need those people to be tweaking it for you. But it's super important to be engaged with your end user group, have focus groups, you know, constantly be getting feedback from them on what they want, what they need.
You know, on the controversy side of things, right, and certainly as it pertains to new technologies, look, 5G is out here. You know, it's clearly going to be a huge advantage for the industry as a whole, but maybe not necessarily ready for everybody right now. 4G is still a very viable solution set. It's still going to be around for the next 10 years. You're not going to see that same abrupt ending that we saw with 3G transitioning to 4G. So I'm bringing this up because, you know what, it may be worth your while, save a lot of money, avoid a lot of the headaches of a pioneering or brand new technology that's still evolving itself, and when it does hit, it's going to hit huge. But, you know, again, you can reduce some costs, maybe wait for that second refresh before you jump in, and take advantage of some of those things. Now, on the other side, when it comes to Wi-Fi, that kind of thing, so we're moving into Wi-Fi 6 and 7, you know, by far, you're going to see those immediate benefits. It's, you know, it's going to be a much stronger connectivity, longer sessions, all that kind of good stuff, faster speeds.
I was just going to touch on one of Norm's points about data and analytics, and you know, we're certainly seeing that become the front end of a lot of organizations where they're, you know, they've been collecting data for a while, and not just to understand the devices they have, but more data on their customer base. What are their trends, right? What are their interests and things like that, and so that they can, you know, direct market to them. We see it in retail. We've all been in a retail store, and you walk in, and if you happen to join the Wi-Fi, you get a 10% coupon if you put in your, you know, your personal information. Now they have you, right? And not that that's a bad thing. I mean, I honestly don't mind some of that because some of it is targeted, but at the same time, you can find a way to use that data and then directly market to your customer base in a more, you know, proactive way, and then there you can monetize the technology that you're using. And so we're starting to see a lot of that.
So the other thing that I think, you know, a technology that is on everyone's tip of their tongue right now is AI, right? I prefer to call it machine learning because I think that's where we're at. And AI is, we're not a Terminator 2 yet, okay? So we've got some time before, the world ends. But to Steve's point, there's a lot of data being collected, either customer-based data or live data that's being collected by an endpoint. It could be an IoT sensor, it could be an ERP system, it could be a worker with a mobile device. But using all of that information and understanding trends, and then being able to automate tasks to potentially, reroute workers or find the most optimal way to deploy individuals within an organization or the tasks at a certain time based upon what trends are, and being able to do it automatically instead of involving a manager. I think that's a huge, huge thing that's coming down the pipe for our industry. It's at the cusp. We're seeing some of it come in, but we're very excited that there's going to be a lot more of it within the next 5 years as well.
I'm going to use the word that is challenging out there nowadays. It's a lot of confusion, a lot of technology that is out there. There's so many options that are available to customers and organizations to develop and enhance their business in the marketplace and be competitive at the same time, retaining employees and trying to get to the next level. I love Norm's statement about the competition, and they're a big ship and it takes them a while to turn around. We want to remain as a tugboat, and that's how my vision is with OCR. Through our acquisitions, there was technology that we acquired. So, automation, right, with vision systems and print and apply systems. A lot of us can think back and say, you remember the days that you can keep equipment 10, 11, 12 years, and now all of a sudden it's shrinking to 3 to 5, and you're trying to move so fast, and then you've got things like, Android out there. They go from 8 to 9 to 10 to 11. It feels like it's changing hourly out there, and you've got to invest your resources and your development time. And then you got Wi-Fi 6, and you got 5G networks, and then you got all of a sudden AMRs and robots coming at you, and higher ups are looking down, saying, "How do we get our competitive edge and investing in all these technologies?" I say, take a break, slow down a little bit. I think the most important part of all that is ensuring that you partner with the right organization. So I look at OCR being that. We're obviously another part of the Barcodes group. People, I still believe, are the investment and the right way to make, because those are the people that have the expertise, the education, finding them, retaining them, investing into the new technologies that are going to come out that can be part of the resources to our customer base, that which direction you want to go to. How do you want, the most important thing that I want from our team to be in terms of technology is to educate our client base. We want to make sure that, everyone reports to somebody when you're working, and educating that individual, that group, or that team to communicate back up to, the director, the manager, the CIO, the VP, and being educated and conformant, and you're able to speak and understand the technology because you partnered with the right people, I think goes a long way. It's just a lot of confusion out there, and I think partnerships on technology is the number one look and answer first step that you should take. And obviously we've got great people up here in organizations, and there's no mistake that we've served Norm for 20 years, and we haven't been perfect. We've dropped the ball. Right? No. Sorry, this is what I mean about technology and organizations, that yes, there's times when things go smooth and it looks, you got the unicorn, the rainbow, and the leprechaun running around and everything looks fine, but every once in a while, Gargoyle, what's his name? Gargamel from the Smurfs, right? He pops up and something bad's happened, right? And technology is not perfect, I had a chat outside. I can't remember who I was having with. I said I always tell my boys to make sure you have some cash and hide it under the bed, because all it's going to take is somebody who's going to that big power switch, and you go to line up, and we've seen it happen, right? We've seen it happen over the last couple of years. Power's gone on, all of a sudden, we don't take credit. People, the younger gen, they're in a panic. Their phone tap's not working, right? So it's very key in who you partner with to help. There's no more customer vendor talk if you hear the verbiage that's out there now. Oh, that's our vendor. No, a lot of people are saying that's our partner, but you have to earn that status, and I think that's what we're doing here at OCR, and investing in the technologies internally, but most importantly in educating our staff, getting the experts on our staff that it's going to help our client base.
How has the need for increased productivity grown in recent years, and how are you helping or being helped?
Technology is not always the answer, okay? It's not even the number one thing you should start with. So how do you become more productive? How do you increase your production? Maybe the question is wrong altogether. How do you be more efficient, right? Well, you can sell more stuff. You can sell new, different stuff. You can innovate. You can sell better stuff. You can remove your waste. You know, it lowers your expenses. It leaves more, profit for the company. But I think the big one here is that concept of improving efficiency within your organization. And that almost always starts with process. Like, start with a process question, because sometimes in 25 years, I've gone through, worked with lots of people a lot smarter than me, and one of the things I enjoy doing is I enjoy mentoring new people into IT. And they come in and they describe a problem, and you say, well, okay, what do you think you should do to fix that? Well, we could use Microsoft to do this, or we could get a Honeywell to do that, or we could do this. And, okay, all you have to do is spend 5 minutes and change that process. And right there, it's not technology. You save 15 minutes for every person that touches that role, that task, and it's done. No technology involved. The other thing is, increase your focus. Worry about customer retention instead of always getting more customers. You treat your customers well, it's going to be like this. I love Tony. I love OCR. It's a great company. They haven't been perfect through the years. But, there's always been a good commitment where it's been when something, it doesn't go the way that we expected it. There's a good conversation. I usually yell and scream a little bit. And then, we all settle down and Tony figures out a solution for us. So that's one of the reasons why we're here, with OCR this long. But, the other aspect is, make sure your people buy into what you're selling, and that's really key. Like, if you're trying to sell something that nobody believes in, maybe you got to look back upon yourself. My CIO, I hope he never sees this. He used to have a saying, you have to be able to look in the mirror and see a short, fat, bald guy looking back at yourself, And it's right. Like, see yourself for all your freckles. See what you're doing for all the different things that you're trying to accomplish. Are you asking too much? Are you asking the wrong things? Are you listening to your people? What's your direction? Those are all important things. There's lots of ways to improve productivity that has nothing to do with IT.
I might counter that point. I agree with Norm here. Process is key, right? That by far. If you can modernize a broken process, but if it's still broken, it's broken. Well, no, you can't change that. We've seen a lot of clients go from technology uplift within their organization. So it's been typically, moving to more handhelds or newer type of handhelds or newer technology, newer Wi-Fi, but they're still connecting to a 1976 AS400 5250 session, right? It's still legacy, it's still the same process, it's still the same transactions. And it was built based upon a lot of known factors at that time, but it has been upgraded. The beauty of bringing in new technologies is that it offers you the advantage that you can change those processes. It gives you the starting point to say, you know what, I'm going to redefine some of these processes. I'm going to move to a voice picking solution, right? Or I'm going to take an ancient telnet solution and I'm going to modernize it on the client device, not on the back end, right? But I'm going to change the process while I'm doing that. And that, it's the one olive in the olive jar type of expression where if I save an olive, times 1,000,000, I've made myself 100,000 olive jars. It's that same thing. You start shaving seconds off, you start looking at increasing accuracy and productivity, and that's where new technologies afford you the ability to do that. It gives you a starting point, and we've done that for a lot of our clients, and they've been very happy with the outcomes.
Customer expectations, I think we all are aware, have changed dramatically over the years. You look back 3 or 4 years, 5 years ago, the thought of same-day delivery, for instance, was the things we used to watch on Roadrunner cartoons. It never happened, right? It's through productivity, increases in productivity, where these types of, certainly in last mile applications, they're now reality, right? And at the heart of all of that is analytics, in my opinion. It's understanding and maximizing those efficiencies in your workflow processes that enable you to get that anvil in the first hour after ordering it, so you can drop it on that pesky bird in your backyard.
I'll just add, if you look at the question, how has the need for increased productivity grown? Let me kick it back a little bit old school. I'll give you an example of shipments. You remember the old days where you have to write down the waybill, and then you had carbon copies and you pull it. We've become a society that just wants data right away. And now it's at the point where, courier companies, you can log on and the moment they print that label. So data and visibility has never been so increased demanding. And then COVID took it to another level because it forced organizations that weren't ready for digitalization, meaning home delivery. No one's allowed in my store, so how am I going to get the products to all the consumers? Now they were forced shotgun to figure out a way to digitalize that process and create a solution that they can make deliveries to home. And they looked at some of the large, corporations and like Amazon's and see that they were already doing it, but their solution didn't fit some of the organizations that had to be made. So the need for, productivity, then it starts to fall downwards. I need more technology. I need more equipment. I need more people. It's a race to the clock. I got to get this done, or else I'm going to lose out in the marketplace. It's reality. If you don't do it, you snooze, you lose, is the old expression. And, now this is why we have partners here that I welcome all of you to stop by and see from technologies such as power carts eliminating steps that increase productivity. We've got MDM technology that's here that can help you push applications over the air. So, even though there's a rush to increase the productivity on an application, it's no more that you have to bring all those equipment back and then load the software again. Now you can do it over the air. So there is technologies that are here today that, I want you to engage with, to give you ideas of how we can help you not let it be a bad thing. It's not a negative thing. It can actually turn into a positive thing if you can engage yourself with the right technologies. There's no going back. Everything continues to move forward. So I think a lot of it has to come from a mentality perspective that it needs to be embraced. And once you get to that embracement perspective, now it opens you to all right, who am I going to choose? Who am I going to partner? Who's going to be there when good things are good, and when the things are bad, that they will also be there to get me out of it. I think that's the most important perspective of productivity and technology and decision making. All the hardware stuff and all the software stuff, that becomes after the fact. Embrace your network to get you to that point that you want to go to, especially higher ups in the organization want to get to. So.
Sounds like a good wrap-up. What are the top 3 things a business needs to consider when choosing a technology partner?
So I don't have 3 things. I just have some comments. I guess vendor relationships or partner relationships, they're long-term. They're like marriages. You really have to go into it like that. You're not always going to get along with your spouse. You're not always going to see eye to eye on things. I've had the great fortune to be working with Tony and OCR for a while. I've been working with Anthony and Honeywell recently. We've had some issues with some of the devices, but you know what? They're a responsible organization and they're looking after us, and we're working together through it. That's an important thing, like when you think about a vendor relationship, because probably the worst thing that you could do if you're looking for a new technology or a new vendor is to look for that vendor 1 month before you need the solution, right? Terrible, terrible planning. Do it months and months and months. Start building a portfolio. Start chalking up some time talking to people. try to get to know them. So it'll be good for you because you'll have an idea what's important to them in terms of pricing and strategy, but it's also good for you because if you're listening, you'll learn a lot along that trip. I guess the other big thing that I would say, I will often get myself in trouble by making comments like, okay, salespeople, stop talking. Where's the people that are going to deliver the solution? I want to talk to them, right? Because salespeople are good at sales, but sometimes, I'm not saying it's the case in this group, but there's been times in the past where I've been with other vendors, when the salesperson has sold the item and you go to implement it, it's like, where'd that guy go? And then you're stuck with the solution delivery team, who maybe you've never met. So spend some time and get to know the organization. Tony's team is a great team, and it's not that he's giving me $20 to say that. It's the truth.
I just got to say thanks, Norm. That was awesome. To Norm's point, it's about the people and the reputation. I pride myself on my team members about how well trained they are, how up to date they are on all the technology, and how much tenure they have with our organization. If I look at my SE team, we're over 10 years each of us as an average for being with the organization. It speaks tremendous amounts in regards to the culture that we have in our organization, but also the reputation we have in our business. And I want to maintain that, and I think that is a very important thing when choosing a partner.
Yeah, I'll just reinforce the fact of trust. I've always said it, and a lot of our personnel have heard me say it. The value is our people, bar none. So, with businesses and selection is, taking a look at the organization. What's their reputation? Our saying is that we never leave until the job is done. And everyone lives through that. That's the bloodline within OCR. I know there's other choices as organizations may have, and we're fine with that. And we're fine with competing and displaying it. And back to the point where I said about education. So if a partner that you can trust, a partner that can educate you on what's out there in the market, and making sure that it puts you in a position that you are informed. You may not purchase anything, and to Norm's point, and I've always taught the team, it's not about just sales. It's about education. That's what you're doing. That's what sales is. We're different than your typical pro salespeople because we know customers have opportunities to go on the line, Google, whatever they want to find, and they will find it on any e-com site. What is our value? So, they'll get the equipment, and they're like, okay, what do I do now? To North's point, they look around, the guy, the individual is gone. That's what we push a lot on. That we're there. We are not gone. Everyone knows in our organization, I have an open door policy. Maybe I should change that a little bit because it is quite revolving. But I was just kidding. But I do enjoy it, whether it's good or bad, because it gets people. What Norm said very importantly, what he'd like to do a lot too, and I appreciate it because I do it a lot too, is to coach and teach. And if you can put that culture within your organization, and as a business, if you can find organizations like that, they're going to spread that education and teaching to your organization as well.
What must an organization consider when deploying a mobile solution?
Okay, so I have ultimately find somebody who has done it before. And it doesn't have to be, your vendor at OCR. It can be, keep your ear to the ground, keep your network open, find out. Most people, if you ask them in a nice way for some help, for some advice, most people give you their time, If any of you don't have a mobile solution deployed and you need help, give me a call. I'll tell you the good, bad, and the ugly, okay? No problems with that. But I also ask that you change your mindset. So when the Japanese lost in World War II, okay, their economy was decimated, and they had to rebuild their economy. So one of the principles that they came up with was this concept of Kaizen. And Kaizen is a term that means continuous improvement. So what continuous improvement means is not big, giant, wholesale jumps, right? It means a little bit all the time, I can't stress that enough. When I joined Able, the idea of making changes were big changes. You know, well, we'll save that for the next version, and that's a major version upgrade. No, 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 no. Let's change that focus now. Let's change things all the time, a little bit at a time, okay? Make some improvements. Why do you have to do that? Well, the world is doing that. It used to be when you wanted to take a course from any Microsoft certification, you could find a course, you could buy the course, and you could do the course. It's really hard to do that now. If you've ever looked around, you know, you can't, it's like you can't buy a book for something anymore because it's already out of date. The second that you get it, it's out of date. And, you know, the technology is moving so fast that, you know, for a lot of the Microsoft stuff, I don't even think they publish their roadmap anymore because it's moving too quickly. Breathe that into your organization. That change is going to happen. Change is inevitable. It's a change management problem. Just expect a little bit all the time. It's going to take a little while, but they're going to start to get used to it, you know? I guess the only other thing I would really recommend is there are people in your organization who can rise up and be bigger and better than you ever thought that they could be. They're beta users. They are focus group users. They are people who, you know, care about your company, care about what you do and your solution. Listen to them. You know, make it status for them to give their opinion. Because ultimately, you listen to them before you start rolling stuff out. And then what will happen is they will be the champions. When you're not in the room trying to, you know, rally the troops, they're going to be the ones rallying everybody. So you need those champions to sell it from within.
So one of the things that I always try to tell our clients or our partners when we are, you know, starting this journey down a new mobility solution is understanding the total cost of ownership. It's not just the initial outlay for hardware and deployment. There is an ongoing life cycle that's going to happen with this solution, be it software, be it hardware, be it repair services, be it warranties. That can run away from you very, very quickly. And so having the visibility and having the ability to potentially put a finite barrier around that so you know what you're getting into for the next 3, 4, 5 years is extremely important. And through managed services, through support contracts, through Honeywell and other solution vendors, it allows you as an organization to have that no more surprises. You know, I spent $500,000 on equipment, but it's costing me $750,000 a year in support services that no one budgeted for, right? Definitely something to keep an eye out, and it's something that we try to strive and identify at the beginning of a project and really put a barrier around it.
What does the future hold, and what emerging technologies do you think will have the biggest impact?
So we talked a little bit earlier about the importance of data and analytics, and I just wanted to share a story. We tell a lot of stories in our organization, but you know, we've done a lot of work globally with a lot of major, major sporting venues. We've got relationships with the NFL, Major League Baseball, the NHL, NASCAR, the NFL's Super Bowl. That's our event, all data and analytics for the last 10 years. I did want to share a story. So one of the biggest things that is happening within these events, these venues, is certainly they want everyone who attends the venue to connect to their Wi-Fi. So they need a solid, high-performing wireless solution. It's a giant cement bowl in a lot of cases, which is difficult from top to bottom to make that work, but we've been doing that very successfully and using analytics tools that we deploy. One large stadium was analyzing data following a big event, and they found that the most active site that people were visiting in the stadium was a dating site. Oh, this is a good story. Right? Yeah. And so, you know, that was surprising. And so they went to that dating company and said, you know, guess what? And they kind of showed them the data. And so collaboratively, they came up with this idea of creating a lounge within the stadium for folks who are on the app to decide to go and meet in person at the facility. And the stadium is collecting millions per year for that dating app to be able to do that. And so that's a fantastic way. Talk about a competitive advantage or, you know, competitive new future things going on out there. That's a great way to monetize the investment they made in their technology. And so we're, you know, certainly taking that experience and bringing that down to the enterprise and trying to help organizations do similar.
There's a lot of stuff out there, you know, AMR, robots, IoT. I think everyone has probably a grasping of it all, but I'd probably say the number one thing right now that's piquing everybody and the potential is probably AI. Right? And everyone's messaging out there from the media, from consumers, the positive stuff on it, but then we're also seeing, I believe it's this technology that could be the forever gaming switch of humanity. Could it be the most positive thing? Could it be the most negative thing? Could it be the destructor of humanity? Could it take humanity to the next level? Unknown right now. It's just a lot of talk of potential, but it's definitely something that is not from just a technology choice, but also from like a society, a humanity choice of what are we going to do with this power? Because I think it's going to actually take us to a place that is unbeknownst or unbeknown, that it could be glorified with amazing information or talents, or can it be so impactful that it hurts us? So I think that's the number one lookout out there is AI, that we should keep our eyes open and ears to the ground on it, on how it advances.
It's funny, it reminds me of things like blockchain, and how that was going to change the world. Remember RFID? That was going to change the way it's going to take over the world. I think AI, to your point, has definitely got more of a chance than those two technologies, but both are very still relevant, but nowhere near as impactful. So, maybe I'd hedge my bet there a little bit on my future looking. I might be a little more conservative in my future predictions. I think, it's automation, and, going to be strengthened and better utilized through IoT, more of a convergence on these technologies to build what I was calling out earlier, the enabled enterprise asset, right? So it's all of these technologies coming together and essentially landing at the end user or that frontline worker, if you will. Being empowered there to be able to walk into a room that's going to automatically shut off a blast fridge or freezer just because it's aware of your presence, enabling those productions that are going to change. It's going to affect all kinds of other automations such as conveyors, whatever the case may be or whatever your business case. And then tied in with now workflow solutions and specific workflow solutions. When I first started this industry, we talked about enabling software. Without good software, Honeywell made great doorstops. It may be still the case, but it's a much more powerful doorstop when we start looking at the convergence of IoT and some of these other automations into that scenario. Another technology that I think is vastly underutilized is voice. Certainly from a voice picking perspective, that's very standard, but it's all its cousin technologies that spin off it. Managed workflow, maintenance and inspection, and then all of the different applications that can be built out from that. I think we're going to start seeing a lot more persistence and resonance within the enterprise for that. And there's no question, I don't think mobility is going anywhere. When we look at the technologies, such as CT47, this kind of thing that's got, Wi-Fi 6, it's got 5G, coupled with, edge platform technologies that are going to make that device or devices like it relevant into the 2030s. I think that's what we're talking about from a future looking anyway.
What are some challenges facing the industry today, and how can they be addressed?
I think cybersecurity is a big one right now. It's in everyone's face. You see large, Fortune 500 companies going dark for 2 weeks because somebody clicked on the wrong email, right? And it's definitely a concern that is at our forefront, not just internally as an organization, but also for our clients. And I know having the ability to secure those endpoint devices that are no longer within the four walls. They're now on the street, they're at someone's house, they're wherever they are. And being able to know that that data is secure, that those policies are enforced, that they're not being circumvented, and being able to audit that and act upon some sort of breach in very, very short time is an extremely important thing for any organization nowadays. I think that's top of the chart for any of our clients right now.
Obviously, uncertainty in the economy, right? So we hear that, and labor shortages and finance. But there's solutions out there that can, companies can't just stop, right? They need to advance. So there's partners here today, for example, that CSI is a strong partner of ours from a finance perspective, OpEx and CapEx. That term agreements that you can look at to spread out your capital costs or your operational costs is one thing. Partners such as OCR, partners such as Extreme and Honeywell, using their resources, their expertise to help you move along that project. And at the end of the day, there's never been more availability and knowledge and expertise spread out amongst partners and customers. You just need to tap into it and take advantage of it.
How do Wi-Fi and MDM solutions ensure data privacy and security in the era of big data?
So, I mean, on top of a secure foundation, we've been able to, through our cloud platform, Extreme Cloud IQ, we've hold some of the higher certifications available, like ISO and SOC certifications and CSA. And it's not relying on your service provider where the data may reside in the cloud, which is certainly secure to a certain point. But on top of that, that next layer of ISO creating the standards, SOC certification, which is basically proof that you're following your standards, and then your CSA certification, which is a very stringent assessment of the security of our cloud platform. So we kind of don't rely on what the service providers are putting in place, but we take those additional certifications, layer that on top, and then you have an extremely, no pun intended, an extremely secure environment, right?
Yeah, so adding to that aspect, data security is number one. Understanding where your data resides, enforcing that it's actually secure on your endpoints, and then how it's being able to offload off of those endpoints is key to any organization. Data is our industry, like it or not. We make widgets, but there's all data around it, right? So having a platform in place, an MDM, an asset visibility platform that gives you the ability to control and secure and audit that those rules are in place and then act upon when they're not is extremely important. Everyone's working from home, everyone's outside the four walls. The old way of I build the fortress of firewall around my organization, nothing's allowed in, nothing is allowed out, doesn't work anymore. Anyway, it's up in the cloud, you're poking holes in it, it's like a dam with water squirting out at left, right, and center. So, qualifying the data integrity and making sure that any sort of leaks or any sort of potential risks are mitigated right away, and having a team that understands what those potentials are and how to address them through either a managed service or through a proper MDM tool set, extremely important. And the other key thing is having a single umbrella organization owning all of security in the enterprise is extremely important. You no longer can have, the network team's only responsible to the edge, and then, the data team's only responsible for the application, and then, it goes out to the internet, I don't know where the hell it goes afterwards. There has to be, a chief security officer, someone who is owning it end to end and responsible for it and making sure that it's enforced. I think that is key to the future of any organization's survivability in this unfortunate, cyber war, whatever you want to call it, Russia attacking us, China attacking us, type of scenario that we're in right now.
Final question. How can solutions be used to improve customer or worker experiences, and what's an example of a successful implementation?
So I'm going to tell you a little story about what we did at Able. We've had mobile devices for quite some time. Prior to the current Honeywells, we've had Panasonic, we've had Motorola, we've had Scion Icon, we've had Symbol, it keeps going on and on and on. So what I'll say is the recent thing that we did was we went to a converged device. Years ago, our typical deploy to our staff in the field was to get a Samsung phone, a Samsung S8, or whatever the flavor of Samsung at the time. I don't like Apple, by the way. Whatever flavor of Samsung phone that they got. And then they would be given a handheld device. And the handheld device was their line of business app. You know, it would have a number of apps that we built into it. And, you know, way back then, we embraced this thing called Xamarin, you know, because we thought it might go somewhere. But where is Xamarin today? Does anybody even know what Xamarin is? No. So we've gone to strictly Kotlin on an Android platform, but we've gone the converged device route. And what it did for us was it allowed us to converge workflows, converge things that the service techs were doing in the field. And they didn't like it. They liked their Samsung phone. It was small, it was neat, it fit in their pocket. They would take the case off of it that I would give them, because, you know, case is bulky, and then, you know, it would break and break and break and break and break, you know. So we went with the converged device. We went with a ruggedized converged device, CT45 primarily. We have the CT60s as well, because some of our use cases in intrinsically safe areas where there's, you know, potential for a guy to blow up, you know, if he's not using one of the right devices. So in the beginning, most of the service techs, they didn't like the fact that they had the one device. It wasn't cool and sleek and as sexy as the Samsung was. But as time went on, they liked the fact that, you know, the flow of how they did things now, it made more sense on one device. And when we did our upgrade to our native Kotlin app for the version of our handheld that we're going to be running, we were able to consolidate 3 of the apps that we normally had separately are now in one app. So, you know, I think it's a success story, and it's one of the examples where, you know, technology ultimately helped us. Because I don't, you know, there's a lot of debate, and you can have the debate about, you know, rugged versus consumer devices, you know. Our guys, they take the devices home with them. They don't drop them in a depot. They're with them all the time. And you know, we found that over the years, you know, the devices break. Sometimes they break when they're angry because they throw it at a brick wall. Sometimes they break because they drop it from 25 feet up, you know. We don't see that as much now with the CT45s. So that's kind of our success story.
My recommendation, you know, as I see it now, is think big, especially in this era. And I'll give you an example. I'll tell you a little story. Talking about when you're automating or digitization or gamification of a center or a division or a department, you know, expand that. And this is what I mean. Customer, La Rocca Cakes. I don't know if you ever had the caramel crunch. If not, highly recommended. Yep, go to Longo's, Sobeys. You'll be happy, trust me. You know, they automated their let's call it their warehouse for keeping it simple. You know, inventorying, figuring out how many cakes, etc. Figuring out how many ingredients come in. We help them there with, you know, the Wi-Fi network. We help them there with the Honeywell devices. You know, integrating into their ERP for WMS. And, you know, it was great for them because it was all new technology. They didn't think bigger at the time because they didn't realize how popular their cakes would become. Now, all of a sudden, the demand of the deliveries, and they were still manual. So, you know, thinking bigger and then extending the data points, and then we help them with, let's call it a POD, proof of delivery. You know, the challenges that they happened as they were getting bigger was that they were able to manufacture and get all the cakes, but then they were out delivering, and it was manual paper. And by the time that they were able to retrieve the paper back and get it into the hands of the admin to get, you know, the invoices going, you know, it was 3 to 4 weeks before, probably 2 weeks before the invoice, 3 to 4 weeks, they finally got the invoice out to the customer, and then their terms were up to like 90, 120 days. But because they enhanced their technology in the warehouse, they were getting hit with, you know, payables because the ingredients, they were ramping up, and they were automated there, and they were paying it, so cash flow was a problem. We automated the POD side, eliminated the paperwork, Honeywell devices, printers, applications, MDM for the security. You know, delivery guys are out there delivering the cakes to Sobeys instant messaging back to home base, instant invoicing, payables became shorter. So my number one, recommendation, think big, always.
That concludes our panel. These gentlemen are going to be at the event all day long. If you have specific questions, you're free to ask them. They'd be happy to answer you. I'd like to say thank you to all the gentlemen that are to my right here. Thank you very much, team.
Thank you.
We are very lucky to call up Luc Chartrand right now to do a little message for us.
Yeah, good afternoon. Good job, guys. Really well done. So my name is Luc Chartrand. I'm the channel manager for OCR, and it's my honor and pleasure to present the Partner of the Year Award for 2022. So it's significant to us because we have a vast channel partner network at Honeywell, but I think it becomes pretty clear after listening to the panel, why OCR was chosen. So we look at three main things. First one being, of course, sales, right? So that's something that's obviously important. And OCR last year had the most sales out of all our channel partners, in Canada. But to me, more importantly is number 2 and 3, and that's service and support. So it's very clear, that OCR demonstrates this day in, day out. And we recognize that because it is so much more than getting a device at the right price. Yes, price is important, and yes, your pricing will be good through OCR, but it's the sales support through the life cycle of that device, and things like even when a cracked screen happens, it has to be fixed, things like that, right? So yeah, without further ado, I'd just like to recognize the entire OCR team. It is an honor and pleasure to work with you guys, and I'll ask Tony to come up and accept this award.
This is not possible without two things, our people and our customers. So that's why I really want to thank you.
Thank you.